Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and originally this would have been calling all minions. However, on checking the Ask the Dev section of the forums or Spectrum, I found that all the topics were topics that we had really already dealt with, or topics that I had already discarded because they were uninteresting, long-winded, blah blah blah. So it's kind of left with a bit of a problem. Can't really make an episode out of that. And I didn't want to just say, oh, well, nothing to do on Monday, click and be done with it. I thought about it a little bit, and there was something that I was going to do today anyways, which was I kind of wanted to experiment with the idea of landing a reclaimer at Area 18. Now, this is already fraught with danger. I mean, not only just the big ship landing, which on a planet like this is difficult, though the reclaimer, because of its vertical thrusters, can make this landing. It's not the best thing in the world. It's not the most enjoyable thing in the world currently, and there's a lot of challenges, not just the challenge of the gravity, but the cockpit view, obviously. I mean, it's got a beautiful bubble cockpit. The problem is you've got this control panel blocking your view. So getting it down onto the ground and getting it into the hangar is something that you have to do in the third person. But I mean, in all honesty, I have become quite good at landing ships and flying ships actually in the third person. It's something that I've been practicing since 3.0 came out with a myriad of ships, and I've actually gotten pretty good at it. Now, since this system was introduced, of course, it wasn't received as warmly as CIG might have fantasized that it was going to be received. And I think that the impression that people got, this announcement coming right on the heels of the announcement of the tow ship or the tug ship, left a little bit of a bad taste in people's mouths. And I think that while I kind of understand what CIG is going for, I think that they're kind of implementing this idea in the wrong way. I think that they're using the wrong approach to kind of sell the idea that big ships don't always travel down into these, these planets, into these large planets, into their atmosphere, because they have a difficult time handling in these environments. I think that a different way to go about it would have been to take the truck stops that we have in space, right? These are procedurally generated space stations. CIG is very proud of them, and they are pretty damn good. Think about one of those and then scale it up. I mean, really blow it up, like make it not just double the size, but maybe triple, quadruple, 10 times the size, a huge one. And every one of these major planets has one of these stations orbiting around it, and it acts as the central trade hub for interplanetary or interstellar trade on a large scale between worlds. So let's say you have a mission that says, deliver this cargo box to Area 18. Well, you can fly it all the way down to Area 18, or you can drop it off at this trade hub that orbits around the planet, and you'll earn a slightly lesser reward, but from there on, it will create another mission for someone who's just doing short runs to deliver it down to Area 18 or whatever. And as far as you're concerned, your mission is completed. You get paid, though perhaps slightly less. Also, with trade, you'll be able to do things a lot more quickly. You'll have a faster turnaround, but you might not make as much. You'll probably have to lose a small fraction of your income on that trade, just because it's a kind of a convenience fee, because you're not really delivering it to the end user, but you're putting it within the end user's immediate reach. So you pay a bit of a price there, but you get a whole lot of convenience out of that. And then keep the large ships handling the way they did in atmosphere. However, add one other issue, where you can take a small ship now, something up to the size of, a Caterpillar, down to maybe a Cutlass. These ships can quantum directly to Area 18 or Area 17 or wherever they're going. Keep that but then make it so larger capital size ships can't do that because they're too big. They can't handle all the atmospheric turbulence of quantuming into the atmosphere. They can still fly down there as they normally did back in the day, but they have to make the whole trip. They can't quantum down, so it's going to take them a lot more time to get down to that location. So it's a lot better for them to just leave things at the hub, and thereby in almost like a little bit of a trickle-down economics sort of way, by doing this and just dropping it off at the hub, they create more missions within the system for the players with smaller ships who maybe don't want to go out there and take the big risks, who want something a little bit more regular and a little bit more safe. There's plenty of that going on. There's plenty of missions being generated for them, and they can move the cargo the rest of the way, whereas the big ships and the Hull E's and the Hull C's and the Hull D's don't have to worry about making that long trip down through the atmosphere. And I think those big Hull series ships can't even travel down into the atmosphere and land when they have all that cargo on them anyway, so it just makes sense. I think that if you framed what CIG is trying to do correctly, in my opinion, if you had framed it in such a way that a large, capital ship pilot or captain is sitting there and going, okay, so let me get this straight. It's more convenient for me. I pay a little bit of a convenience fee to do this, but I'm able to get faster turnaround times. Just go drop off the goods, pick up fuel, pick up more goods, and then boom, off into space and on to the next leg of my trade run. Whereas, the player who's kind of staying close to safer ground has regular missions, say, oh, I need to deliver more goods up to our Corp hub so that they can sell them to these traders, and then I've got to bring the goods that they deliver all the way back down. So now I've got a reason to go back and forth, and it's something that makes a lot more sense, and then still preserve the ability to land a capital ship at a place like our Corp Area 18 or something like that. But once again, you have to make the whole trip. You can't just quantum down to 40 kilometers away from Area 18. You have to make that whole trip the way that we used to have to make that trip before they allowed us to just quantum to that location, which to me was always kind of like the weird thing that they did. And it was kind of one of those inconveniences that when they took it away, I was just kind of like, I don't know if I like that. I kind of like the idea that you had to make the trip down through the atmosphere, and just quantuming to the location seems a little bit cheesy. I mean, I can kind of accept it with the smaller ships, but with the big ships, it seems kind of out of place, you know what I mean? So I think that had they delivered it that way, it would have made a lot more sense. And then you could still sell the tug ship and say, this will make it a lot easier to get up out of the atmosphere when you're fully loaded with cargo, but without making it almost implied that you needed to have one, which was kind of where it seemed a little bit slimy. It seemed a little bit sleazy when they kind of hit us with the 1-2 punch like that. I really didn't like it. I kind of feel that at times it kind of appears that with CIG, it kind of appears that sometimes like an idea comes down the pipe without a real explanation behind it, and it's like, this is what we're gonna do, so let them know this is what we're gonna do. And I feel that there needs to be some kind of like a middleman or a mitigating influence that kind of says, wait, stop for a second. What if we frame it like this? What if we take this idea, what you're going for, and what if we kind of tweak it just a little bit and make it more palatable, easier to digest, or we make it in such a way that the players are going to look at it and say, actually, it's kind of a win for us if you do it this way. I think if you kind of step back and instead of just trying to, just say, this is how I want it, this is how it's going to be. But if you kind of step back and say, okay, I'm willing to listen to a few alternatives. If you go about it this way, I think it gets you where you want to go. But it makes it in such a way that the community actually wins through this, that the community doesn't feel like they're losing something. Instead, they feel that they're actually gaining something. And I think that would have been a better way to go about it. I mean, I agree fully that landing a large ship on a planet with a very, obviously a much heavier gravity field than a moon should be a difficult act. I don't think that it is something that should be easy. Now, there are certain systems in the game that need to be tweaked or changed to better enable, players to handle these sort of tasks, especially from the first person. But I think that overall, I kind of agree with what they're going for. It's the way that they're going about it that I don't agree with. I think that it often comes across as it's like, this is the edict that came, down the pipe, and it, community managers and whoever, the developers, whoever appear on these shows or have to make these posts, are left scrambling to try and find a plausible explanation for this decision, when at times it feels like it was a decision that wasn't fully thought out when they decided to implement it, and that it was something that maybe needed a little bit more time to percolate, and a few more alternate suggestions should have come in before it was just like, oh, by the way, this is how it is, deal with it. Anyways, that's my thoughts on that subject. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Sorry there was no calling all minions this week, but I don't make the posts into asking or ask the devs. I just answer them. Anyways, yeah, that's the show. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.